Whoop, whoop. Oh, is that the Earth soundtrack, or is that the soundtrack for Bard? I think it should be the Bard soundtrack.
Just sounded like you dying, Andy.
I was making ominous trumpeting noises, Dylan.
I thought you were saying the song was the sound of Bard, and I'm like, that is not even in character at all. And then he made like dying manatee sounds, and I got kind of scared.
Okay, or did you get excited?
I don't know why you think I'm excited by dying manatees. Manatees are majestic, noble creatures, and if they're dying, something's going wrong. Why are you laughing at dying manatees?
Because I'm a heartless bastard.
Yes, I can tell.
Well, welcome everybody to the podcast. This is a good way to start things off. This is the League Community Podcast. What episode are we on now? Is this like number
11?
I think it's 11, yeah. Episode 11. My name is Andy Belford, a.k.a. Zwill. I'm a member of the player relations team here in North America. And then joining me is my esteemed co-host and colleague, Dylan, Most Dirty, Dylan Buckner. Hi, Dylan.
Hello. Esteemed. Thank you.
Esteemed.
Just lying through your teeth.
Well,
But
I mean, because Patrick was
esteem.
imitable. And so you're esteemed, obviously.
Gotcha. Perfect. Okay.
That's proper ranking there.
It is. It's like it's a stack ranking, actually. Speaking of stack ranking, today I have no idea.
No, you got this.
I got this.
you got
Speaking
this.
of stack ranking, this is why he's the professional and we're just amateurs. But that's
You're
okay.
literally like hosting a podcast as part of your job. How are you not a professional? It actually fits the exact definition of professional.
I'm flubbing.
You are aware of this.
I'm flubbing.
I don't think we have to introduce him at this point either.
I really
I'm pretty
don't.
sure
Hey,
everybody was like, oh, yeah, that's Phreak.
Snarky
Hey,
person on the
hey,
microphone.
everybody! Freak is here.
Hello.
And
Welcome
in
to the
fine
Zwill
form.
Champion Spotlight.
Featuring Dylan,
for your
a.k.a.
proper
Lucifer.
for your proper Harry Lucifer.
God.
Oh, speaking of formal and proper introductions, welcome to the podcast, Mr. David Freak Turley.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Well, it's good to have you.
I'm with wonderful homies, and there's going to be cool people listening. So
There
it'll
is
be all
gonna
great.
be. That's very true. I'm sure that the Reddit crowd will eat this right up and find some way.
If they have the patience to listen to like an hour-long audio file.
Wow.
I don't know.
I'm just saying. If you got this far, you already have more patience than I do. I'm just kidding. I've actually listened to a couple of these through already.
Oh, okay. So I was gonna say,
Tread
so
softly, Freak, or you tread on my dreams.
the content you make, it's pretty much crap.
No,
I'm already out at this point.
I'm making fun of other people, not of your hard work. I'm just saying that via the duration having more than 1 0 in it, or one digit in it, like some people just and they just turn around and do something else.
Okay, fair enough.
Well,
we will
we
do
find
our
you
best.
so compelling
Yes.
that we thought that you could actually carry that full hour.
Absolutely.
Maybe we will be proven wrong.
You oftentimes when you expect good things of me, you're proven wrong. You'll come to learn this.
At the least, we can expect somebody will somehow make a meme out of an audio file. So
Yes.
So how things been going for you?
Things
lately,
been
Freak?
good. Things been good.
Yeah.
I'm living the esports dream. I get to commentate video games, which is sweet. Hang out with cool people. Like I have no complaints. All of life is wonderful.
Yeah, and the season seems to be going swimmingly. We just announced what we announced a couple weeks ago: spring finals in Vegas. That's exciting.
Yeah,
And
those
then
announcements starting to roll out.
I know. Yeah, we just announced. Did we? We didn't announce.
As of today of the taping, we announced where Worlds itself is.
That's right, North
Wonderful.
America.
Touring NA.
Are you excited to be traveling the
I
road
am.
show?
Yeah, it's always fun when you get to go to different places. It's always sort of been the goal now is like, hey, can we hit as many sort of different areas as possible? We want to keep it within a continent for Worlds because going 9 time zones over is kind of hard between like a quarterfinal and semifinal. But in that we're already in Europe or we're already in North America, traveling around is nice. We get to catch more people.
I'm super excited that one of the stops for the Worlds is actually going to be in Chicago. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I actually don't remember if I've been to Chicago before, so that'll be a nice new experience for me. But yeah, I think we have a really good sort of set of different states and cool cities we're going to. So should be fun to get to explore a little bit.
Indeed. Well, in case you didn't know, Chicago is the windy city.
Yes, that I have heard about.
Yes, and so the wind doth blow.
And they're the home of the Bears.
The Bears.
The
yes.
Bears.
And honestly, depending upon who you ask, possibly a superior form of pizza.
I agree with that sentiment. New Yorkers come at me, what up? I heavily actually prefer Chicago-style pizza.
I agree. But I also used to work at a place called Pizzeria Uno back in the Midwest.
Okay.
So
I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's good. It's
Good.
delicious.
Yeah, man.
Is it number one?
More bread, always.
It is numero uno.
Yeah.
So that would be
Yeah.
by
Stop
definition.
it.
Wait, is it a chain or is there only one of them?
It's
is
a
that
chain.
why it's Pizzeria Uno?
Oh,
Because
so
then
it's-
when you get another one, is it Pizzeria Dos?
Actually,
They've done
no,
that?
because it's Italian. It's not Spanish. So
Okay.
what
That makes
it is
sense. But I don't know Italian.
in Chicago was the Pizzeria Uno. And then across the street, they had to like build an extension. You know how Sujita has kind of like, we're getting super meta here.
No, it's
They had to build an extension called Cafe Due.
Okay.
So that is like, it's Pizzeria Uno, and then the overflow is Cafe Due.
Nice.
So, yeah. Today
Bread
you learned.
pizza better than not bread pizza.
Nice.
So, how much do people out there in like esport land, how much do they know about the young David Turley?
About Young Freak?
Young Freak.
So there's two versions of Young Freak. There's YUNG Freak, which
Yes.
is just like you just say that as like a term of endearment.
Yes.
And there's YOUNG, which is, when I wasn't famous. I'm assuming you mean the second, so I'll go into that story. There's versions of the story, right? There's the 10-minute version, there's an hour-long version, there's like a 30-second version, so I'll try to get one that's like the right length here. I'm from Northern California, from San Jose. I say hella, which is tight.
Bay Area represent.
I'm from the Yay. I get hyphy occasionally. I've never ghost ridden a whip though, so I don't fit all the stereotypes.
Did UCSD? I know nowadays they actually have a pretty decent sized like League of Legends specifically club. But did they have like a actually, there's a lot of folks. Some of the interns from last year, I think Lulu, shout out Lulu, I think was at UCSD. Did they have a video game club back in the day?
Not that I had heard of. I wasn't the most socially connected in general. So maybe there was and I missed it. I don't remember hearing about it. Winter Game Fest's been going on for a while. Maybe it was there while I was at UCSD as well and also missed that. That's actually probably more true. But no, my gaming exposure to UCSD was that I was a wannabe pro gamer and finally got really good at one around the time I was a freshman. And UCSD has really good internet. So, it was
Right.
nice getting like 8 ping to like the US West server so that I could, just crush nerds and qualify for tournaments.
Sorry. So what game was this?
So I was a semi-pro Warcraft 3 player, meaning the one where you
That's
actually
right. I think I
micromanage
remember
armies
that.
and stuff.
Yeah.
I did also play Dota alongside that, but I was a top 30, top 20 in the world, best of my race in
Which was that?
Night Elf. So outside of Europe and Asia, I was the best Night Elf.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I'd played all the other top Night Elves at some point, and I'd like 2-0'd every one of them.
Man, what a weird RTS that was in the back. But don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I just played this game again 3 months ago.
Oh,
That's how
nice.
much I love that game. But I remember watching competitive for the first time. And
I went and watched something recently too.
It'd be a couple minutes in, and the guys would be fighting it out, and they'd each have like 3 units. You'd have a hero and like 2 footmen versus like 3 archers, and everybody would just be dancing. Like that's the crazy thing about that game.
It was the cool thing. So like Warcraft 3 is interesting because, so part of the reason the armies were so small is there was a mechanic called upkeep, where once your army size was big enough, your gold income got cut by 30 and then 60%. And so you would try to find ways to play around only having like limited supply, which is very metagame defining, right? Like humans would always expand in mass towers, and they would use up all their food just having workers basically, and towers didn't take up supplies, so you would just stack gold and then tech. Also, on like a game like StarCraft, your gold income is very limited, and you can't like spam SCVs and like mine all the minerals forever. It was like a really big deal to get an expansion, and you couldn't accelerate your gold income any other way, and so units very heavily fought with teching, more so than a game like StarCraft. You have to kind of choose which one you're going to do at any meaningful time. And so if you want to hit tier 3 and get some bears, or if you want to get griffins, or if you want to get your third hero, you can't make as many units, and so there were like a whole bunch of interesting decisions you had to make around like production in that game.
Yeah, not to mention great MOBA training, because I mean, really, the Warcraft 3 engine was the foundation of it all once upon a time. So we didn't even know it, and we were training back then.
Yes and no. The actual first one that gets credit for being a MOBA was a StarCraft map called Aeon of Strife.
Oh,
Aeon
you're
of
right.
Strife is credited as being the originator. Maybe there's something before that, but last time I like read up on like Wikipedia or something, that was the one that got all the credit. And I actually played that game, so I like played like the original MOBA. So then, like, Yule made Original Defense of the Ancients for Reign of Chaos, which I also played, and my best friend from high school, who also works here, at Riot now like got me into Dota in the first place, and then from there basically followed Heroes of New Earth and League of Legends with my various Dota friends. Eventually fell in love with League, and then got to be playing this game a whole lot, and that's been the last 6.5 years of my life now. And then all the while we were doing the pro gaming thing, to jump topics real quick because you asked about the origin, I had been sort of interested in teaching as a general concept, and did like some studies with that in college a little bit, but the major experience there was I did a bunch of basically commentary videos and a little bit of shoutcasting on the side while in high school and college, and being a makeshift like wannabe pro gamer, which ended up being super useful because then I worked at Riot and used those skills.
Do you ever look back and think what might have been if you had kind of continued along that educational path?
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's funny because if I was born 5 years later, I'd just be a streamer, right? Like, because that would have taken off at the right time, and I'd just like be on Twitch, and I'd hopefully be as popular as someone like Darius or QtPie. Being that I was born in '87, I was an economics major, which was finally a topic that I enjoyed, but it was just a major to get a major. Like, I don't know what economics jobs there are in that, like, what does undergrad econ training actually allow you to do? There's not a lot of applicable fields, I don't think. But like I got like a good taste of like how statistics works and things like that, and that was like an interesting field of study as well. So, finding something around there. I was always like a math nerd. And then I was going towards a teaching credential before I dropped out to join Riot. So, one of those avenues probably would have done something for me.
Could you imagine kids sitting in class and being like, Mr. Turley?
About as much as I can imagine them sitting in class saying Mr. Dylan Most Dirty. And they did, actually. I did some teaching for a while. And
nice.
Oh, man. Salute the teachers out there.
Yeah, wonderful people, for sure.
But it's not, I think, outside the realm of reason that, one day you might be back in the classroom teaching something like, the history of esports or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be more in terms of like, a speaking opportunity than like teaching a class in the like conventional professor sense. And I actually have been like blessed with a couple opportunities to do like really cool speaking things. Most notably, and it's still not on YouTube sadly, but UCSD actually called me up a year ago roughly. And of course their students, help run a lot of the clubs and whatnot. And so they're running a TED extension. And a couple of people there were like big esports fans and League of Legends players. And they're like, hey, Phreak, you went to UCSD. You want to do a TEDx talk? I'm like, do I ever? Like, that's an exceptional honor. So
can you explain really quickly for the listeners what is TEDx, or what's a TED talk?
Sure. So TED is, and this won't be a very accurate description, but as best I can do, is organization of sorts. Their tagline is ideas worth spreading. They get speakers who are experts in certain topics and say, hey, give us a 10-ish minute speech around some topic you know a lot about. And usually like every conference has like a general topic, right? Like not like solar power, but like, it's just some sort of idea that you should try to hone your speech around. So it's a speaking circuit. And it's hard but not unheard of to like have like a TEDx, a TED extension branch, and so UCSD has like a TED extension, and they can host their own events sometimes and whatnot. And so I was there alongside MC Jin, who was cool because I used to follow his freestyle hip hop career like back in the day, before I stopped doing that. And so like that was like a celebrity that I was like, oh my god, hi, I met this guy, that's cool. But just like people who know really cool things. There was a couple of professors at UCSD who talked about like their research and the cool things they were doing and like finding dark matter and stuff. So it's a speaking circuit for people that have cool ideas, and they thought I might have some, and so I just gave like kind of a personal story.
Basically a bunch of feels videos. If you ever
feels
feel like
videos
being inspired, crying, laughing, feeling dumb, go watch some TED Talks.
That's a much better description than what I gave. We should have asked you that question.
Yeah, man.
My bad. Just edit this part out, and we'll just do what you said.
Just use Dylan's Dylan's response to everything. Actually, Dylan is going to be Phreak's new front man, in case you were
wonderful.
It's just what I've always wanted.
My
mother
perfect.
would be so proud. I'm working for a guy named Phreak. Well, in what capacity, Dylan?
I'm answering questions for him for other people. Let's just go back to I'm tutoring people.
Yeah.
So seems like so much of kind of like your journey and even like a lot of your success has been tied to PC gaming. Like, have you always been has that always been your main kind of platform of choice?
Yep, absolutely. I've been a PC gamer since like forever. My dad is a big tech guy. Like one of his first jobs was like repairing floppy disks when they were like 2 feet wide. Actually, he has one, not floppy, hard drive, sorry, when they were like 2 feet wide. And he has a bunch of like silver platters in his closet upstairs in my parents' office. So we've had computers around since forever. Only reason I even had a console at some point was we won N64 at some point. So I remember like I would try to beat my sister's speed records on the various tracks, but by and large I was playing PC games.
Wait, how did you win an N64?
My dad went to some conference and there was like a drawing, right, for like one person's gonna get N64, and they pulled my dad's name, so he brought a 64 home and it was like, surprise, we have a thing now. And I was like, sweet, okay, we have an N64.
So
that's solid.
You didn't do the Nintendo 64 toy reaction?
No, that wasn't me.
I mean, I was gonna say though, it's kind of a funny case where I'm sure your dad was just like, what does this thing do? And then he opens it up and,
Not in the
man, you
slightest.
weren't even stoked. You're just like, that's cool, Dad.
I mean, I
That's
don't remember.
awesome.
Like
All right.
it was like actually 15
I'm
years
just going to
ago or
imagine
something.
you losing your mind because that's a lot more
Well,
fun.
the thing is, like, I was already like a gamer. I already got to play a bunch of games. We had a PC. I was on it like 24/7 practically. I played, stuff that I probably shouldn't have, but I like played original Diablo at like 10 or something.
Wow.
I mean, it's like rated M, and it's like, no, I unsupervised played Diablo 1, like no big deal. I remember playing Duke Nukem 3D, and not all of the computers had the parental content locked.
Yeah, I'm sure, man.
So I saw pixelated boobies, which was sweet.
That's what it's about.
Yep. Yeah,
That's
that was
the
a big
point of the
deal.
game.
Yeah, I mean, or just very gory enemy deaths, of course. But I mean, all the original like Epic and Apogee titles, like all the Jill the Jungles, the Jazz Jackrabbits, the side scroller Duke Nukems, like Commander Keen 1 through a million. One Must Fall I actually still play occasionally, which is like a super old fighting game. Like I used DOS as a kid. Like that's how OG I am as a gamer, is I actually like used DOS. If you don't know what DOS is, that just proves how much older than you I am.
Yeah. Wow, you're younger than I am, and I certainly didn't do that. When were you first playing PC games?
I don't know. I don't actually remember.
Wow,
I was
that's crazy.
Like 5 or something. I don't really know.
I did some Ski Free when I was pretty young.
Yeah, I
That's
remember
about
playing
it.
Ski Free in
Dan
like grade
Yeti.
school, but I was like gaming way before then already.
Wow.
So
I used to play Oregon Trail.
I played Oregon Trail.
And did you?
Oregon
Okay.
Trail's
But
legit.
Andy, that was only in the latter half of your life.
Yes.
What was it like playing so many board games before that?
Hey, I grew up with computer games, but it was on systems like the Commodore 64
Nice.
and VIC 28.
You
The
got me
best
beat on that.
name.
You got me beat on that.
Did you play some Jumpman Jr.? Remember that?
I don't.
Don't remember Jumpman.
I
No.
don't remember Jumpman Jr.
Nor does anyone listening.
He did one thing. He moved and he jumped.
Was he a man?
He was a man.
Is he still a man?
I'm not sure.
If all the copies of the game no longer work, is he dead? Is that how that works?
Stop.
Is the Jumpman like no longer?
Are you making a Heisenberg uncertainty principle joke?
Not exactly, but I mean, sort of in the whole theoretics of is Jumpman still alive?
You just really want this podcast to get cut up into like 8 different new freak puns.
No, these aren't even the puns. I'm a deep thinker, and in the high-paced version of the LCS and the heavily, cut up champion spotlights, here's this. Finally, you guys give me a chance to be free,
The real freak.
and
Okay. All right,
outside
let's
the
go with
scrutiny.
this.
Yeah.
Okay.
He is embracing a more cerebral conversation,
Mm-hmm.
sir. How dare you judge him for that?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Well, let's get back to it. So you were at
Okay.
UCSD
Yeah,
doing your thing.
yeah.
Well,
Apparently not very socially aware.
Actually, even
Very-
before that,
still
like
not.
Sure.
you were telling us a little bit about you were an early content creator.
Yeah, I
Okay.
guess you're right. So we'll talk about the content creation part of it. So this is all pre-YouTube, right? So finding places to put things is really hard. But I remember listening to esports broadcasts like way back when, like old WCG, Counter-Strike 1.6 or whatever version they're playing at the time, tournaments, and I followed StarCraft and StarCraft Brood War. I went to some of the like local WCG qualifiers for StarCraft Brood War.
WCG, by the way, for the folks
World
listening,
Cyber Games.
World Cyber Games. Yep.
Yep.
So wiki it.
Yep. I got into esports and I got into sort of teaching as an idea, and I started recording replay commentaries it started with like StarCraft 1. And I started getting actually good at something with like Warcraft 3, and it was like, where do I host these? Because I want people to see them. And like my friend's dad had a web hosting service who gave me like 20 megabytes to upload MP3s and link the zip files. And you know, I went through and eventually found a fan site that would host my stuff. So I eventually landed at wc3plays.com, which was like the big fan site. Like that was the English speaking Warcraft fan site. And I made like over 100 of these like hour-long MP3 plus replay file zips that you would, you know, hello everyone, welcome. I'm David Turley, or actually, hey, this is Phreak, and the WCR audio number 137. And today we're going to talk about Night Elf versus Human. Everyone, please load up the replay, get it to the 15-second mark at the 1x speed with Fog of War on, from my point of view. And I'll give you some time to get there, and I talk for a little bit and say, okay, let's unpause in 3, 2, 1, unpause. Okay, you can see here, I'm doing a standard alter build order, and like that's. So I would you make these kind of things, and that was all probably very accurate. There's probably a spotlight that said those exact words.
It's easy to forget how much the internet just used to suck. Like,
I mean, I guess.
Great back then, obviously. It's just, I don't know. It's just crazy.
But no, you're right. It's advanced so heavily. Right now, it's all on YouTube. Right now, it's all video. Like, video streaming did not exist.
Yeah.
It was a rarity when it was like, oh my God, Grubby recorded a first-person VOD. It's like, now I can just turn on Sneaky's stream, and there's like 75 hours this week of games he's played, right? It was like, no. There were like 7 first-person VODs a year. Like total, like that was recorded because people, like it was hard to get computers that were that good. The bandwidth wasn't there to download those things, and let alone stream them.
Well, yeah, I mean everybody was on dial-up, and if you had cable, like it was you were your parents were probably very well off.
Yeah, thankfully when I started doing audio commentaries and stuff was after my parents had picked up broadband. Like we were on broadband before I was in high school and before Warcraft came out. So I had a toaster when Warcraft came out, Warcraft 3, but internet was there. But yeah, it was like interesting, like, you know, 10 megabyte files are a big deal. And like how heavily can you compress human voice to like get people to download this on time? You know, like it was interesting how much you cared about that kind of thing. And then now it's like much easier to get all this stuff. Computers are faster, internet's better.
Yeah, it was really interesting. We were at TwitchCon earlier this year, and Marcus DJ Wheat was up on stage and was kind of just talking about the good old days of like StarCraft replays and stuff like that, where he would upload the audio and video files separately and do exactly what you're just talking about. You know? I mean, those are kind of the pioneering days of shoutcasting, though, in a way, right?
Oh, I mean, it's the origin of the word shoutcasting. Really? If you guys don't, it's great. It's funny how many people don't know this. Shoutcast is the official name of a plugin for Winamp that you would have a Shoutcast server, and the goal was that it was a radio station, right? Like you'd connect to an IP, right? You'd stream audio to it, and then it would be a radio station. It would stream audio back to people who listened, and you use the Shoutcast plugin for Winamp, and you know, a box that would host, you know, that kind of traffic, which I used to do shoutcasting, literally, right? And of course we configured it to do voice, but yeah, like the intended design of this plugin and service was to be a radio DJ. And yeah, so I was a literal shoutcaster when I was like 14, 15, 16 years old.
The more you know. But seriously, what is Winamp? I just realized I have no idea what Winamp actually is.
Winamp. Oh, I actually really like Winamp. It's a audio playing program.
It doesn't exist anymore.
No, it exists.
Oh,
I have it installed on like most of my computers. I mean, I guess it's a program, so I can just run it whether it's dead or not. So
fair enough.
Unlike Jumpman, it's still alive. Just sitting there. That was an easy setup.
I could see you just starting Winamp, staring at it for a while, and being like, "Yep, just like old times. Can't do anything with it."
Yeah, I don't think Winamp. Yeah, so I don't think of it that way, at least. But as far as Winamp, the audio playback program, I think it still exists. You know, has visualizations and, you know, different skins you could put on it. Now we're just using Spotify, so who cares? But which is maybe why Winamp is dead now. But
so you were playing Warcraft 3 pretty much professionally back then. How long did that go on for?
So I played Warcraft 3 since it basically came out in 2003. 2003, 2002. 2003 was the expansion. So since 2002. I got really good by early 2005-ish. By the time I was graduating from high school, I was a pretty high-level player. And so I joined one of the top 2 North American teams around the time I was a college freshman. And so much to the chagrin of my parents, who were paying for my college education, I spent a lot of time playing Warcraft 3 to keep up and just to remain a top player. I qualified for a couple world championships. I played in the equivalent of LCS called WC3L, but instead of being like any specific, it was for all teams and all players. So I was on a top 10 team of all teams, and you just schedule matches. I'd like wake up at 5 a.m. to play some Korean guy before he went to bed, or whatever. So so I was focusing a lot on playing that game. That was from at a high level from maybe 05 to 07, something like that. I eventually kind of got bored of the game. I just kind of got tired because the competition wasn't going anywhere, and I was like doing really badly in school because of it. So I just sort of focused my attention elsewhere. I was still gaming a lot, but not on sort of that level.
What happened with the competition? Why did it stagnate?
I mean, Warcraft 3 just never remained all that big. It was interesting because esports was still really small time just at that time. Like, right, we're just now getting esports to like be more and more accepted and more viable, and more people get to actually be professionals in it. If I was that good at League of Legends in 2016, I could have been a pro gamer, but I was that good at Warcraft 3 in 2006, which is a very, very different time. So War 3, like World of Warcraft came out like right after Frozen Throne. So a lot of people jumped off of that and played WoW. A lot of people jumped on WoW because it was a very good game and very popular. Being a boxed game with no major updates after the expansion, player base is going to dwindle, right? You compare to a game like League of Legends or Counter-Strike or anything that actually re-adds content to the game and continually updates the game, it's a lot stickier when that happens, right? It's part of the reason that League is so good and so popular is that the game stays up to date. Frozen Throne definitely didn't do that. So the Warcraft 3 only just went down over time, and Korea never picked it up over StarCraft 1. StarCraft players also hated on Warcraft 3 players because we were like the inferior RTS for whatever reason. Even then, the space is still pretty constrained because how many games can you really run? Like it was in the various circuits, but like unless you like actively won tournaments, there's nothing to do in Warcraft like that would sustain you.
I mean, go ahead.
I was gonna say it seemed like the scene for competitive Warcraft also just kind of just gravitated over towards Dota.
A lot of that, yeah. I mean, there's some of that too. And I don't know if Dota was ever as big of an esport as Warcraft 3, like original, like Frozen Throne, Dota All Stars. I don't know. I don't have metrics on that, but I generally saw a lot more. Well, I mean, I was a Warcraft 3 player, so I looked at it more, but I generally saw more like Warcraft 3 TFT tournaments than Dota tournaments. And then, both those games just sort of continued to dwindle. And then Dota 2 came out, and League of Legends came out, and, all these other things existed. And, Counter-Strike got revived with Go, and esports just got better because now streaming's a thing, right? If Twitch was a thing in 2006, I could be a streamer and probably sustain myself doing that because I could get ad revenue and people would probably like stick with their games longer as well.
Could you really though? Like, I mean,
maybe.
I think everybody remembers back in the day, and this is actually isn't really like from a financial standpoint, but I think, anybody who's been playing League of Legends for a long time and has been involved in the community for a long time remembers that when you used to like be streaming from your house, be streaming from your bedroom, right? I mean, do you think, like looking back, that you would be able to sustain like that level of rigor that these streamers are doing? Because you look at guys like Trick, you look at guys like Cutie, like they're streaming for like 8-10 hours a day.
Yeah.
That's exhausting.
I mean, so I would basically just be like, I'm an adult mom and dad. I'm just going to do this, bye school, and just like, play games, right? Like if I had the choice, I would be a pro gamer, right? Like when I was 18, if I had the choice, I'd be a pro gamer. And so I competed and followed and did the best I could. And if there was a way for that lifestyle to have worked, I would have followed that lifestyle. 100%. I know I would have.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that's striking me is in both of those areas, just that lack of like a really believable, compelling personal path forward. Like, I know that's something that has been tough for esports to get to. It's how do you convince that, 16, 17, 18-year-old kid that this path like can work out for them, that you don't have to just be one of the top 5 in the entire world. It's still tough.
I think it still lines up actually really well with like professional sports analogies, right? Like I'm 8-year-old Timmy and it's like, I want to be a professional football player. That's my goal. And so you play through high school, you play through college. In fact, you're not allowed to join the NFL. I think it's NFL until you finish college. Yeah. Like there's some sports where you're allowed to jump out. Right. So like, and some sports I think don't require that. But yeah, essentially like, there's the path, and it's like, if you want to be a pro, you go through all this, but also like it's baked in that if you aren't picked up and drafted and you're not in any of the teams, well, you went to college. Right. And I think that same thing exists. Like you can try as hard as you can to be the best AD carry in North America, but if you're not, you're going to be 22 and you're good at League of Legends, but like, well, you're a 300 LP master tier 80 carry, but no one wants you. What do you do? Right. And so like not being in that spot is a really big deal. And that's kind of where I was, right? Like I was a really, really good Warcraft 3 player with no teams that were going to pay me any money because they're only going to pay like a dozen people and I wasn't those dozen people. And thankfully, like what I was doing a lot of commentary work, and I learned a lot about how to talk about the game, and I still get a lot better now. Like being an amateur at that is, it's still a slow learning process, but I was better than everyone else when it came time to apply to Riot and say, hey, I'm not only really good at League of Legends, but I also have made literally over 100 replay commentaries. I've shoutcasted like half a dozen international events and even more online. Like my resume was literally like, here's things I've shoutcasted, here's the website, the fan site I worked for, and here's the tournaments I've won. And it was basically a gaming resume, like literally like things I've accomplished in gaming specifically, and that got me hired at Riot. And it's me chasing the dream of I want to be the best Night Elf player ever, while also developing a skill set that was actually usable. And so for people who are like, I want to be Cutie Pie or Dyrus or Double Lift or Faker or whatever, well, that's nice, but if you're not that, you need to have skills. Right. And like that's incredibly important.
You got to have a backup. I mean, that's something I think that's applicable to a lot of things. Like anytime somebody says, "Hey, I want to get into the video game industry," I'm like, "Great, that's awesome. What should I major in?" I'm like, "Well, what do you want to do?" And if they're like, "Oh, I want to be a programmer," I'm like, "Great, go major." Yeah, go major in computer science, get a CSE degree or something like that, so you're marketable. So just in case you don't make it into the games industry, you have something to fall back on, right?
And you can always even jump from there, right? Like be an employed programmer for a couple of years and then just keep trying every year, right? Like that's the cool thing about life is like it's more like a game of XCOM and less like a game of like
Don't say that. I'm having nightmares right now because of my XCOM game.
Okay, it's like a game of XCOM where you can save scum. How about that? Like, you're not playing Iron Man.
Thank you.
And the reason I bring it up is like you can fail at things and you go back to the base and you're like, okay, your soldier's wounded or whatever. I'm kind of pushing the analogy pretty hard, but like, the Avatar project pushes forward. The Avatar project meaning like, I don't know, you die at the end of old age, but like, then you just try again, right? Like, that's the cool thing about life. Like, you just like keep trying at things, right? Like, I failed at being a pro gamer, but I was researching be a shoutcaster, and so I just did the shoutcaster thing, and that was fine. Like I am enjoying what I'm doing. I just didn't know shoutcasting was a thing.
Well, it wasn't,
right? And, I mean, much like pro gaming was like, well, 12 people get to do it. It's like if you're not DJ Wheat, or Korean doing StarCraft, so you're taste hostess basically. Like, no, you don't. You're not professional anything. And I just I hadn't lived my life in any other way than like, well, I enjoy doing these things and hopefully it'll work out. And I was lucky and it did. But I was just like, I'm just following the esports thing. And then esports basically wide enough that it allowed more people in.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, like the early days of esports. Like you said, you went and you shoutcasted like a bunch of international events.
Yeah.
What was that like? Like that scene back then?
It was really cool because, and it's like, I guess kind of the experience that a lot of like new shoutcasters and new gamers are going to have as well, or new like competitive gamers are going to have, where like it's everything at once. So like you go to an event and you're like, wow, this is what esports events are like. How sweet. Like, this is really cool. This is really awesome. Like big convention centers and big tournaments, whatever. But as far as like, esports in the, early 2000s, it was, a lot of online competition. Most of it was online, and there were like big tournament circuits. You'd go to ESWC or WCG, or tournaments would come up and then die off as there wasn't enough money for them to like keep it going. And so you'd run around, you'd be like, okay, you'd play and you'd try to qualify for something, and then the top 8 or 16, whatever, would go to that LAN final in Sweden or Utah or China or wherever, and then you'd play, and then the tournament would be over and everyone would go home. And as a commentator, you would just get called up, depending on how organized they were, months or days in advance. I actually had a thing where I literally flew to Korea like 2 days after being told, like, hey, we need shoutcasters. You want to go? And I was like, I walked downstairs and said, hey, mom and dad, it's summer vacation right now, so I'm not doing anything. Can I go to Korea? They want me to shoutcast something this weekend.
Did they at least
Yeah.
pay for your flight?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's having to create, like, I'm not, yeah.
Guys,
So-
I'm gonna need $2,000.
yeah, and the thing is as well, like as a commentator, and I don't know what the going rate for an amateur commentator is anymore, but yeah, they'd pay your travel and room and board, and then maybe they'd pay you money. I did 2 events for Blizzard. One was $500, one was 300 euros. The $500 one was, and that was like for a weekend's work, was the North American regional qualifiers for the World Championship, and then the 300 euros one was in Paris, which was their actual World Championship, so it was the same amount. And it was the year they announced Diablo 3, so I got to like watch that in the audience live, which is pretty sick. So that was kind of fun, and just, you know, as a nerd gamer, that was pretty nice. And then, you know, there were just events where it's like, yeah, we're just going to fly you out and then we'll just fly you back. And, you know, I would go because what else am I going to do with my time? And it was, you know, check, yeah, I did this thing in Korea on my resume.
Oh, but those all added up, obviously.
Yeah, of course,
because,
right? It was all experience. It's all useful.
I mean, that's one of those interesting things. There's a couple people at Riot who make me think of this where, you know, the best example, I started in player support, and Rivington Bisland, your fellow Shackcaster, was actually my desk mate on the old account team in player support back in the day. And again, didn't know it at the time, but Christian Link was the tech lead for player support as well. And hadn't met you at that point, but kind of seemed to be a similar thing where we brought these people on in the early days who had these really awesome talents that like Riot didn't have the capacity to fully use at the time, but could see itself getting there down the line. And
I wonder.
And it sounds like that to some extent was the case with you. I know we were immediately able to put you to work on the spotlights and then some wider community stuff.
Right.
But in general, I wonder the same thing. If somebody was like, this guy one day.
for those who are like maybe newer to the league scene, and didn't know Young Freak back then in his early days of Riot, what was your first job here at Rito?
Yeah, so my first job was community intern. To quickly talk to Dylan's point real quick, I think it's some of that from both ends. It's people who are just like, again, we're talking about 2009 gaming, right? Like, we want to be in gaming. We'll jump at any opportunity we can, right? Early Riot was a good place. They were hiring. The game was doing well, grabbing people all the time. And then maybe there was some level of like, maybe as we realized how good the game was doing, like that there is like this, you know, this future coming in that we're going to grab people for. But I think it was more the former than the latter in terms of just like people that are in gaming wanted to get into gaming. Like in a real sense. So I applied as a community intern. In late 2009, I was still at UCSD going on my 5th year because I didn't pass enough classes, and my friend who worked at Riot at the time was like, hey, and I'd met him through gaming. He'd like done a bunch of gaming media. He interviewed me at a couple of tournaments, things like that. Was like, hey, you should come to apply to this company I'm at. It's really cool. I was already playing League at the time. I was like rank 1 at the time as well. He's like, come apply. It'll be cool. You know, community internships open. Go for it. And I was like, okay, sure. Why not? And I interviewed with 3 people, with the director of community, director of marketing, and Mark Merrill, the president.
Back in the day.
Those were the 3 interviews, just like director, president, because that's who we had to interview people for. So that was kind of interesting for an intern, right? Like that doesn't happen anymore. And my interviews, I remember just like, here's my resume, here's these gaming things I've done. And I was like, yeah, I want to make videos. I guess at this point I'd realized that videos were now a thing and not just audio anymore because computers progressed. I want to make videos, you know, I want to do shoutcasting if possible, I suppose. I had, you know, various ideas on the esports front. One of which being the idea of bright skins, which Quake players use, where you like texture swap a model to like bright freaking neon green so you can see them, which we never do for League because we have good enough readability anyway, but also they would look terrible. But that was an idea. I told the director of marketing, yeah, you should make really ugly skins that are really bright for visibility's sake. Whatever, right?
Hire this man.
Yeah, so whatever. But but yeah, I just sort of, you know, I've been part of communities. I like was a volunteer at a fan site for like 6 years. You don't get a better community intern resume than that.
Sure.
Like how do you, right? So in retrospect, I realized I had an amazing resume, actually.
Yeah, you actually,
like,
I mean, that's the thing.
That's a sick resume.
Dude, not so long after I got here, 4.5, almost 5 years ago at this point, I was just seeing Riot hire people like with actual backgrounds in what they were doing rather than me who just got in on a good interview and somehow saying that like my restaurant and tutoring experience made me experienced in player support.
Restaurant experience is pretty. I don't know,
No,
but
exactly.
that's actually legit, though.
Sure,
right? Like,
I tried to
again, you
parlay
have
it.
real world experience of having one-on-one interactions with human beings that have problems.
Yes.
Right. Like, no, that is again like real world like player support experience, right?
And it worked back then.
Yeah,
but
of
yeah,
course.
you actually had that correct background
and,
for
I
what
mean,
we
and
needed
none of
you
it
for.
professionally. I mean, aside from like getting contracted to cast an event or something.
Yeah, but that actually doesn't matter. The professional part,
No,
honestly, it doesn't.
And I came to realize that.
As somebody who hires community professionals on a
Mm-hmm.
regular basis, like one of the first things that I look for is experience with community sites, like
Right.
fan sites, things like that.
Sure.
Like anytime that somebody asks, how do I get into community in the video games industry, I'm just like, just go do something.
Yep.
Shoot, if you're willing to do it for free,
go-
that's
go
a good
do it.
sign.
Yeah. Everyone who ever asks, how do I get into X? It's always go do it, right? Like, there is no shortage of people who want people to do things for free in gaming.
Yeah.
They're like,
Yeah.
right? Getting a Challenger in solo queue earns you no money, right? Like, if you want to be a pro gamer, you can get to Challenger for free. No one will pay you to do that, but proving that you're that good means a team will look at you. That's the esports example, right? Do you want to do free shoutcasting? Well, guess what? YouTube is free. Go cast stuff, right? Like, just pick up a microphone, grab a VOD, get some friends. If you want to do a duo cast, which is probably superior, right? Like, there's a bunch of low-level tournaments all the time. Do you want to write articles? Well, there's a whole lot of fan sites that'll take applications, right? Like, there is never, ever a shortage of places to work at for free to get experience in almost any realm ever, right? Do you want to be a coder or a game designer? Mod Unreal Tournament or
Yep.
StarCraft 2 or whatever.
Sure.
Like, for I think literally everything, there is an avenue to do it and practice it.
Yeah, most of like the game designers I know cut their teeth on either Unreal. Actually, you know what the really popular one is? The Neverwinter Nights.
Really?
Yeah. People,
Sure, I can see that.
that is like
So many games got built on that engine.
Yeah, they just get built in the engine, and it's like game designers like cut their teeth on that because it has all the tools that you need.
Mhm.
You have all the models, you have all the like the maps you can build, and you have all the storytelling tools that you need as well. And
that
so
was basically Dungeons and Dragons
Yeah.
kind of system video game for
Yep.
them, right?
Yeah, it was made by I think the one I'm talking about was made by BioWare because there was a
Yeah.
couple of Neverwinter Nights, but yeah, it was made by BioWare, and yeah, I mean that is like so many times I hear game designers talk about that. So going back to the early days,
Yeah.
early Riot, right? You were not to like to swell your head.
No,
and-
please keep
yeah,
giving me
keep-
compliments.
You were
Yes.
so much more.
Oh man.
So much. But no, but
I was, like,
honestly,
the most
you were
important person in
so
the
much more
company.
than a community intern,
Yes.
right? I mean, how many hats were you wearing in those days?
But yeah, so going back to early Riot and how that all worked. Yeah, so it's a startup company, right? Game just launched. I joined right after the game came out itself. We hadn't even released individual champions yet. And yeah, I was like hired, the goal being champion spotlights to be a marketing tool for new champions, right? Good player has got to play a new champion. If it looks good, you'll buy it. Right? It makes sense. But yeah, I wrote a bunch of news. I posted a bunch of news. I, as the reigning best player in the company for like the first year and a half I was there, I was a gut check for balance changes as well. Company was really small, so when we played as new champions, like they have to get right, they have to be balanced and put in properly. And so yeah, I had a hand in helping develop new champions via suggestions and whatnot. One example being Galio's W used to give damage reduction, and the R used to give armor and MR when it was used, or it was like Bulwark only gave armor or something. Like one of those things, and I was like, wait, but if you can cast W, like you can use the Galio passive to gain AP, so you can dynamically buff your stats instead of like buffing damage reduction, which is kind of a lame stat. Like you can actually give yourself ability power by increasing your MR. And he's like, oh, it's a good idea, and just like switched them off like individual feedback. I'm trying to think of like other like examples of like individual champion changes that came through because I was like, hey, wouldn't this be a good idea? And they're like, yeah, that would be a good idea. And they put it in, and then it stuck. But
and this was the Wild West days
yeah,
of
there's
champion
a decent number of those kinds of things happening.
Sure. I mean, those were the days of the old company playtest idea
Yep.
where it was just like, okay, we're doing this game. We're patching every 2 weeks because we've been patching every week, and we need to keep, or every
Yeah.
2 weeks, and we need to keep doing it.
And yeah, we needed to put
And
new
holy
champions
crap,
out
we
and
need the whole company playing
to help test for
at
bugs
once
and
a
give
day.
feedback.
Yeah,
And
send your bugs, send your feedback, send everything. And I remember they were definitely the Wild West days. It's tough to collate all that feedback, but I imagine I do remember that actually, where you couple actually elite players at Riot were pretty precious in terms of getting that feedback.
Yeah, I remember way back in the day, actually, we didn't have all the strict rules around esports. I remember working at Riot while competing in tournaments. And I remember like I would like be in tournament finals against Reginald's old team, like him and Dyrus and whoever he was with at the time. And like it's funny because like now like a lot of my old teammates are Rioters as well. Like I played against Classic, I played alongside Roku, you know, who's here as well as a designer. You know, Static was around, like so that was fun, like, you know, competing and whatnot. And then also as far as, you know, again, sort of the hats and patching every 2 weeks, I remember very frequently we would hit up like at the end of a patch cycle, we're like going to turn the servers off and push the patch in like 3 hours. You know,
the bad old days.
We're running around in the night.
3 hours if it went well.
Yeah. No. We were going to turn it off in 3 hours, and then it was going to be down for 12 hours or whatever until the patch came out. And it would be like me and or Classic and or Static would go through the patch notes and be like, yeah, we should cut that change. Yeah, I don't think he needs that nerf, or he doesn't need that buff, or, you know, we shouldn't do that. And we could literally like T-minus 4 hours from the patch, like change the patch. Because as the experts of what a good champion is, we could like say, no.
To be clear to everybody listening out there, that was like 5 years ago.
Literally 2010.
Yeah, this is not how it works now.
6 years ago at this point. But I'm pretty sure that every QA analyst just like wailed in despair.
Oh, no, we didn't QA that. You just pull it out and you just...
Oh, yeah, of course.
You just submit it.
There was some guy just hot swapping it.
Yeah. No,
just changing the build like on the fly. That isn't a big QA.
Reverting a change, you know.
That's not how Hacker and Patch happened or anything.
Oh, God. Yeah, so we've had obviously some...
Hacker and Patch, just if you weren't there for it, just go read about it.
Yeah.
Leona
was bad too.
Leona, the Leona patch.
Leona, I remember coming back from lunch because I was like waiting to post it on Spotlight. YouTube didn't have time release controls yet to turn things public, so I had to be at my desk to push the video up. And it was like, oh yeah, Leona's gonna come out today. Okay, hurry back from lunch. It's ready to go. Okay, no, sorry, the patch isn't working. It's gonna be a few more hours. Okay, never mind. Like,
and then what was it, like 24? How many hours later?
I don't know. I don't remember anymore. It's so much has happened. I forget.
Let's move on.
It's too traumatic to even think about.
So I'm really curious. We've been getting towards it. The Spotlight, man. How did that get? That's like an institution at this point.
Yeah.
People still go back and watch that old Sivir one. I'm sure it's there with you running Smite, Sivir, mid lane. I think it was.
Yeah, it was Smite Rally. So here's the thing, right? Is I learned a lot about how content creation is supposed to be done and like targeting audiences and whatnot after doing Spotlight for so many years. So the reason I did that for Sivir was my mind said everyone knows how to play Sivir, right? Like she's been around for a while. She's one of the original release champions. She's easy to play. I don't want to just do the same song and dance. I want to like show people something new. And I was like, yeah, I'll go Smite because I can just like grab buffs all the time, right? I'm gonna push forever, right? Because Rally was insane. Like Rally actually was a summoner spell you should always have brought at that point in time in the game. It was easily the best summoner spell. And I'm gonna go Blood Razor and Smite because like I just want to do something different, right? Do on hit Sivir, attack speed Sivir, you know, push all the time, use Rally to push, and then I can go into the jungle and grab a red buff or a blue buff. You grab a blue, you have infinite mana on Sivir, you can push forever, no one can touch you. It's great.
So you're saying that the Spotlight was actually, it was a totally different part of kind of the release timing where you did this after Sivir was already out.
Yeah.
And you were attempting to essentially spotlight a cool, different, new way to play this champion.
Exactly. So there were two kinds of Spotlights. There was the Champions Coming Out Spotlight, which is every 2 weeks. And then if I had available time in the off week between champions, I would make one for an older champion. And we would actually try, I remember like way before we had like a real data team, we'd look at like, hey, you know, I wonder if we make a Spotlight if it'll like bump sales of a champion. Like, let's just find out, right? Like, let's watch Karthus's like buy rate. Let's make a Karthus Spotlight and then see what happens. We figured out that doesn't do anything. Like, no one like buys the champion because of Spotlight. At least to my knowledge, is what they told me.
You're not that good for you.
Yeah, whatever, right? But yeah, we'd like say, hey, who do we want to make one for? Like, who's hard to play? Who could use a Spotlight? You know, literally. And yeah, in the Sivir case, I was like, whatever. No one needs a Sivir build. Like, this is easy, and that was the wrong choice. Like you should make it to be intelligent, right? You should make it to give people the right way to play the game because there will be a new player at some point, right? There will be someone who this is their guide, and so that was like a wrong choice.
Did you envision those kind of older ones as being like a great educational opportunity?
Yeah.
To really.
I tried really hard for that to be a thing, actually. If you go back and watch the old Spotlights, you'll see that specifically there are static images of what I think the rune and mastery pages and item builds should be.
Sure, yeah.
And I wanted really hard as a direct goal that you could pause the video and set up for the champion, or pause it on your second monitor while playing the game and buy those items. I really wanted there to be something you could just have on your screen that you could have as a companion while playing the game. That wasn't actually as useful. So like, we knew for a while, like, because YouTube has decent analytics, and they did back then, like people drop off watching the video once you get to the build section, right? So you had to play the game, you watch all the gameplay, and people would be like, okay, I'm done. But some people would stay on. And even though I was constantly getting feedback, like people are tuning out of the video, people are tuning out of the video, people are tuning out of the videos, like I don't care. I think this is worth it. As the the producer of Champion Spotlights, I understand people are leaving the video, but for those who stay, I think this is worth it for them. Eventually, we changed that goal. We wanted them to be like sort of more evergreen in that, like, the masteries changed this season. All the old mastery guides are gone, and some of the runes too, because they hinged on certain masteries. Items change every few months or every year or so. Those go away. You can no longer build those things anymore. Atmos is gone. That's no longer in the Garen build.
Champion updates, man.
Right, champion updates happen.
Just detonate those old videos.
Right, and I don't know if we do a great job of those because I don't have control on the YouTube anymore, but like, yeah, you'd want to unlist those videos as soon as a champion update came out because that was just weird otherwise. So yeah, you can never really keep up with all the champions. Not really. But yeah, so I had the goal of like making them educational. Now there's more, a little bit more zoomed out. It's a little bit more about sort of the general of how to play the champion, and the specifics you can find out somewhere else. Also because they're more intricate, so like just the descriptions take longer. So
we're a little safer too. I imagine we're much less likely to update Echo anytime soon.
Sure,
like we're a little better at making sure we don't hit all those horrible gaps.
But we also focus, I think, less on trying to educate the community on exactly how to play a character, because we've realized that the players, the community,
they're going to find out real fast.
They do, and they do it way better than we can. So.
Generally, yeah. There's just so many players, they're going to find those builds.
Yeah.
Like really, really quickly. Like Tank Echo was more a thing than we realized it would be, for example. Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's actually, I think Tank Echo is kind of coming back now, especially with the recent buffs. So
yeah.
So I'm curious, like every time, there was actually a period where I hadn't seen some spotlights, and then I saw one, and you were still the voice of it, and I was like, man, Phreak's doing so much other stuff, flying around the world and all this. I'm amazed he's actually still got the time for this. Is this the case where they won't let you go, or like are you holding on to it with your just like grip and cold dead hand situation?
I think in between the two. So I don't think they're trying to get rid of me, but I also don't want to let go. Like, I mean, I like doing spotlights, right?
Yeah.
I enjoy it. It's really fun. It helps me like, learn the new champions a little bit more as well, right? I'm going to cast them in the LCS anyway, and I'm going to play them and against them on live. Like, why not have that one extra step where we can go through the script process and see more of this footage and whatnot? So, but yeah, I mean, there's been videos where it wasn't me, right? If I'm out doing Worlds, Skarzard does one, like that just happens sometimes. That's fine. But yeah, I don't think either side of that equation is trying to change how it is.
Well, I think there's something to be said also for kind of the consistency of that. Like your voice in a champ spotlight is something that a lot of players have grown accustomed to, right?
Sure.
That it's comforting. It's something. It's like, hey, it's my buddy Phreak telling me all about the new champ, and there's something
giving
to be
me
said
some
for that.
awful puns,
Giving me some terrible. Oh my!
That wasn't a thing for. I don't know when puns started actually. Like, because I didn't have them in like old champion spotlights. I don't remember doing them in like season 1 or 2 commentary. Right? Like if you go watch like season 1 Worlds, like the videos up on YouTube, I wasn't making puns in those games. So at some point I decided it was a thing.
I think the puns kind of really just started with the whole like tons of damage thing.
Yeah,
that really just seems like where like you and puns became kind of synonymous.
They just existed.
Yeah. So speaking actually about like where you are today, like we've talked a lot about like where you've been, kind of the road, the more the humble beginnings for not just you but like for Riot in general.
Sure.
Of dealing with that. But like if you think about esports these days, and you think about like especially League of Legends as it relates to esports, like your name is fairly synonymous with League and esports these days. Like what does that do to you? I mean, and again, not to blow your head up and keep on piling it on.
No,
there,
it's
but
okay.
like,
I'm the best. Just please.
You are
of course
around, and nothing's ever gonna get you down.
Never.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just gonna stop.
No, it's
I'll
gotta
leave
like
the
that.
puns to you.
You don't need to help him out, Andy.
I never need help. I'm always, the best I can be.
No moss.
Wow, you're like the Kanye of esports right now.
Yeah. By the way, if you want to, hear the next LCS game, we're going to delay it by 3 weeks, and you can go get that by using Jay-Z's streaming service.
We're going to get sued, man. Oh, that's a joke about Kanye's new album. I'm hip with the hops. I know what's
You're hip hop
out there.
Look, I'm going to let you finish, but
oh yeah, that's right.
Stop
Kanye has
it.
so many memes because the guy just does weird things.
He does. Let's just not talk about the rest of the stuff he's been spouting this week.
Yeah.
So seriously though, like,
Yeah.
what does that do to you? Like, you know, for that to happen?
I don't think it does much. So I don't like. As far as like transition from being like, we'll start with 15-year-old me to now, where I'm 28. Like, it was interesting because I think so many things happened that changed who I am in a way. So one is even before like esports blew up and the whole like freak League of Legends commentary thing blew up. Like, I was David Turley, who is this shy nerd who got good grades and liked gaming and whatever. And then I used the persona Phreak for a while, but Phreak got really good at Warcraft 3, and I was a top player. And was kind of a dick, didn't have really good manners. I whined when I lost. I was like, I would have been chat restricted or like suspended, if also like Warcraft being a 1v1 game means I wasn't flaming teammates, but I'd be like, fucking human imbalance, bullshit, fast expand. I can't win on this map. So I complained a lot, and whatever, but I was very confident when I was in game because I was really good. I could beat almost anyone on my continent. And so I learned some level of self-confidence and more, being more assertive. I made a bunch of audio commentaries as Phreak, and people could tell that was me, David Turley. The names are linked and whatnot, but like, I made a bunch of these things as an expert that people would tune in and listen to. And I was like, oh, cool. I'm doing things that are valuable that people enjoy. Cool. Like, and I learned to express myself better, to be more confident and whatnot. And then I joined Riot, and then League of Legends started blowing up. And, I learned to control my temper a little bit. I became a little bit more mature just as time goes on, figure out how things work, living on my own, having an income, paying for rent and utilities and, figuring how all this stuff works out. So, did a lot of growing up because life. But as far as the whole like famous thing goes in, like, it's weird because I don't feel like it's affected me in any way. I mean, if someone asks me for an autograph, I'm not surprised. Right. Like, I mean, right. If you were me at 15 and me now and someone asked for an autograph, I'd be surprised at 15 and not surprised now. So, some things obviously change because of that, but I'm never like walking around like, I'm so freaking cool. Everyone should like look up to me or anything. I pretty much every day realize that being where I am is a product of being very lucky. Like,
sure.
All the commentary work and all the playing and whatnot, like, and getting good at things, like, that's me working hard at things that I care about. But like, I was born in a country that has access to high-speed internet, and with a family that has disposable income to buy video games and computers and fast internet. And, esports happened to blow up at the right time before USSD actually kicked me out for bad grades because I was still playing so many games. Like, there was no plan where it's like, at some point this is actually going to work out. I was just like following things that I enjoyed, and then thankfully there was a place to go. And I think sort of reminding myself of that like every day basically keeps me pretty humble because I know a lot of the success is luck and not like me being better than other people.
You mentioned something earlier about creating content as Phreak and the name of Phreak kind of being out there. And yeah, it can be tied to David Turley, but do you feel like, being Phreak is kind of a shield against like some of the criticism and
I don't
like,
think so.
Scrutiny? No?
I really think of them one as the same. I mean, I legitimately, and you can make this a joke if you want, like, I've had girlfriends where they refer to me as Phreak as opposed to David, just because that's the name they know me as. Like, they knew of me online before we ever met in person. Similarly, like, there'll be the situation where it's like, no, I'm going to call you David. That's your real name, right? Like, there's different approaches to it. But I mean, in high school, my friends called me Turley because it was a small school and there were 4 Davids in the same class, and it was, all the honors kids went to the same class like over and over again. So like, I haven't been called, like, I've probably been called David less than 50% of the time by someone like referencing me in some way directly. To me, Phreak is just a name. It's me. I am David. I am Turley. I am Phreak. I'm whatever. It's a name. It references me. I don't think it's any different, really.
Now you sound like Kanye. No,
What? I missed that.
sorry.
I don't know what
It was just that like I am Phreak. Phreak is me. Phreak is the name by which I go. Just that stuff. No,
You got a little esoteric.
no,
there, but
it's
okay, we got it. It's
actually
out there.
You're absolutely right because I go off this purely from just my time at Riot where people's summoner names or stage names have been more or less sticky with regards to
and
them being
synonymous
called
with the
that.
person.
Yeah, like Morello's gone through this interesting thing where everyone used to call him Morello, and then it just started to like kind of fall off, and he's far more often called Ryan in my experience now. With you, it's funny because like I got to know you actually, and I was like, all right, I got to stop calling this guy Phreak. But it is very synonymous, like you said. I can't believe we haven't asked this though. Where the heck did the name come from? Maybe you just slipped that in really quick. Did you just?
No, I didn't slip it in. So I picked the name Phreak in grade school or middle school. I know I used it already playing StarCraft 1, so you can date that, but I got the game in middle school. Basically, again, David Turley, this sort of shy nerd who didn't have many friends and, got straight A's up until midway through high school. I picked the word freak and misspelled it. Like it felt like a screen name. I don't know if I identified that heavily with like calling myself a freak. I don't think I was like going that far in terms of being self-deprecating, but it was the internet, so I used a PH instead of an F. And
this is cool, man.
Yeah,
that's enough.
Right? It's the internet, right? Like it wasn't like full leet. I wasn't like XXX freak Sephiroth 3000.
It's that quiet confidence.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I think there was some element of knowing I didn't really fit in where I was.
Sure.
And some element of it's the internet, and I just picked the name that like had some level of meaning. And now like it purely is just a name, like it's just a collection of letters.
Do you still feel a little like you don't fit in, or?
I mean, yes and no. Like I'll always have like that little tinge of like self-doubt, just always in general. Right? Like I mean, like for the last like many number of years, I've always thought like, how did I get here? How did I get here? When I mentioned the TED Talk earlier, it was about the journey of how did I get here, and it's why I sort of realized like, well, look, yeah, right place, right time, right? Like the situation I'm in is very fortunate, but at the same time, like I've still earned everything that I've had, right? The fact that I'm still here means that I'm like worthy of still being around, right? Like Riot didn't fire me once they realized I was dumb. Like I managed to stay smart enough and like useful enough. But
I know that feel.
But right, like getting into Riot as an intern, right? Like I don't know if I could apply to the same job with the same resume I had when I was 22. Regardless, like I come to learn, that I'm valuable and that people like me. I'm still actually really shy socially. I won't go up and talk to people I don't know almost at all or ever. If you approach me, I'll be happy to talk to you. It's fine. But I'm generally closed off as a person. You asked about sort of being famous and how does it affect me? It doesn't really, because I don't go out that much. Like I play video games, which is fine. Like I'm happy. I'm doing things that I enjoy. But like, my average Saturday night is me playing solo queue, which I'm fine with. It makes me happy. So I don't get approached on the street much. People asking for autographs. It still happens occasionally, but not super frequently. I'm not out all the time. And the whole like being recognized in game, yeah, I'm used to being recognized, right? Like,
yeah.
I just sort of acknowledge that the fact of the matter is my name is everywhere, so people recognize me. Okay, and then I like move on from there.
This gets to something I wanted to bring up early, which is so especially for one of those kind of early Riot presences, you think of the other people who were around a ton back then, like Morello, Pendragon, probably a couple other people I'm forgetting. I feel like there was a lot more love-hate than generally what I have always seen with you. And like even now you appear a lot less on the forums, and on the sub and stuff like that. But you drop in. Yeah. And it just seems to generally just be a much more well-received experience just in general. Like I've always felt like you had a really good quiet confidence. Not even quiet, just a good confidence with players and like a really good rapport in terms of being willing to say strong opinions.
Yeah. So,
but people just generally like receiving that well. What are your thoughts on like your online persona, like specifically written?
Right. So it's interesting because I've always been a community member since like forever.
Yeah.
Like I posted all the time on WCR. I've been a member of forums since forever, and I never sort of changed my approach to that in general. Like when I became a Rioter, I came to learn, okay, there's things you have to be more careful about. But Yeah, I've always sort of had the same approach because, like, when I started becoming active on gaming forums, is like, well, I was a top level Warcraft 3 player. I could say things with a lot of confidence. And then, similarly with League of Legends, like, well, I'm a good player, so I can talk about things with confidence. And then I came to learn, a good number of things about game design or how Riot works or, how things work, whatever. And yeah, I mean, I just like being a part of communities, and I don't approach it as a spokesperson. I think
Sure.
that comes across pretty obviously when I
for
talk.
sure.
It's like I'm just a dude who really enjoys League of Legends and knows way more about it than most people via being a player and being at Riot. And I just enjoy interfacing, right? I spend a ton of time on Reddit, more than I maybe should, but it's just because I want to be part of the community, because I am part of the community, because that's the people that I talk to.
Well, I think that, like we were talking about earlier, like if you talk about like the old school League players, like they remember you being one of them, and I think that carries over, that you are still to
Sure.
them, and I think probably to yourself, like you are one of them. You are a player. Folks remember back when you would be streaming, and
Yeah.
they connected with you in a very personal way, right? And it's part of the reason why we are, we're kicking up live streaming efforts here for North America, and and running that. So, by the way, you can check that out on twitch.tv/league community.
Is that your serious voice, Andy?
That was my serious voice, my announcer voice. Twitch.tv/league community.
You got tired of embiggening Freak's head?
Well, I mean, there's only so much that you can do in that space. So. Well, speaking of making your head bigger, like let's ask.
Let's keep going.
Yes, let's do it.
Yes, please.
Let's actually
Stop.
ask. Let's ask a question that I think. I mean this very seriously, but
Okay.
I think it might sound a little like
Jokey.
not even jokey, but just like a little
Like I
bit.
said, chokey at first. I was
Chokey.
like, whoa.
It's like,
Whoa.
what's
We're
the
going
opposite of
freaky
We're going
in
to
here. I didn't even mean to do that.
So
Dylan.
that is
why
the
don't
go-to
you-
joke people make,
Oh.
and people think they're original.
Oh, I wasn't even
Yeah.
trying. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was very obvious you were
Yeah.
not trying.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I should
At
really
all.
expect any more of
Dishonor
him.
my family.
You have.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
It's at the risk of being jokey.
So without wanting to sound like super, I don't know, full of ourselves, like you've been a part of esports as it's kind of emerged from its
Sure.
nerdy cocoon and exploded onto the scene and become much more mainstream. But how do you think that 30 years down the road, when you're sitting with your little freak and freak grandson or whatever, how do you think history is going to kind of remember your role in esports?
I don't know. My goal has never been like, what is my legacy going to be or anything. Like, I've always, again, just sort of looked at what I enjoy doing, and I just do that, and then where it leads me, it leads me. So I don't in a way sort of care what my impact is at the end of the day. Like, am I the best commentator? Am I the funniest commentator? I don't care. Like, I'm one of many people who were involved in sort of the first big boon of esports. Like, it was slowly growing for decades, and then streaming took off and internet TV took off, and bandwidth got bigger, like all at the same time. And not only are people more willing to consume shows of sorts on their computers, but League of Legends also is really popular, right? And gaming's continuing to grow, right? Like, as good as League of Legends or esports could have been 15 years ago, well, gaming wasn't as big 15 years ago, so it wasn't going to have that kind of impact anyway. How are you going to sell at the Staples Center when the pool of core gamers or PC gamers is smaller? So a lot of really cool things happen all at the same time. I happen to be caught up in it, which is awesome, and I love being a part of it. But as far as sort of my impact, like, I kind of almost don't care. Like, I'm not doing this because of what I'm going to be remembered for. I'm doing this because I enjoy it. I love the game. I love commentary. I love interfacing with the glorious communities that are involved with them, and what that turns into, it turns into, and that's fine.
I can jive with that. I mean, even not being a public personality, it's just fun to be along for the ride.
Yeah.
is kind of what it sounds like.
Yeah.
I know that thinking back to the early days at Riot, we're talking about compared to now, like, the personal growth has been one thing, but also just seeing the whole scene
Right.
change. That's the best part, is like, this isn't just League doing all this. Like,
Of course not.
esports in general is just blowing up like crazy, and it's so fun to see all that happening. And it's still I know leaves me wanting more, because I know at least in America and this probably helps with the the big headedness and stuff in general, is just that most of the country still doesn't know about it here.
Yeah, sure.
Still you're very unlikely to meet a League of Legends player or even somebody who's heard of it in a lot of cases,
Sure, yeah.
except in specific settings. And so it definitely just leaves me wanting to get to the point where it is in Taiwan, where it's not Netflix and chill, it's hang out and play League,
Sure. Mm-hmm.
What is Netflix and chill? Never mind. I'm just gonna stop.
Look it
Don't
up.
even.
Look it
Just
up,
gonna-
kids.
just
Look it
gonna
up.
stop.
Are you trying to troll or?
I was
No.
a really
Yeah. Okay.
Good.
Hulu and relax.
Hulu and relax. Yeah, that's what happens with the old over 40 crowd.
Yeah.
Actually, is
Oh, gosh.
we Hulu and relax.
Okay.
Crackle and nobody.
Oh man, I've used Crackle before.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What a terrible name.
Yeah. I mean, like
just
at least use
bad.
Snap or Pop, right? They're the better ones, but. See, that's how you make quality jokes. I do want to add one addendum to the question you asked a second ago, though, about like what I leave behind. Just like one thing I'm also going to do is like I'm always going to sort of chase being as good as I can, right? I'm always going to try to do the best job, and just because I care, like I will try to push esports forward and commentary forward, and if that ends up leaving a mark, then cool. But yeah, it's more sort of for me than for anything else.
Do you have any role models?
Not really. Like there's certainly the people I look up to. The big one from commentary is Joe Miller. Like that guy has been awesome forever, and I've listened to a lot of his stuff from back in the day.
There's great passion in his voice.
Yeah,
I mean, he's just so excited.
He's just
listening
such
to
a
him.
great commentator, right? And that's really cool. But not really. No, like role model wise, no. There's no one I've ever modeled my life after. Been like, oh, he has that trait, I should have it too. I mean, in a professional sense, like I'll look at other commentators and be like, oh, hey, what are they doing that's smart? But no, I've always felt like I've had a really sort of strange outlook on life, where I just sort of do what's fun, and it's happened to work out. But it's
Well, you're pretty you. I think
Yeah,
everybody
I'm just-
who
I'm
knows
just very
you and,
me at
and
all
even league
times,
players
and-
probably get that.
and
You're
it happens to line up with success.
It does indeed. So, well, Phreak, it has been a wonderful conversation. We'd love to thank you. Well,
You'd love to thank me?
I'd love
Can-
to thank
then-
you,
then
but
would you?
I can't, because you
No,
just
of
can't
course.
take any more compliments. is
No,
what-
I'll thank me, and I
Okay,
know that's what you
please.
wanted for. So, Phreak, thank you so much for being this amazing and awesome. I mean, truly, it's been an honor for everyone, both in the room and online, to listen to all these wonderful knowledge bombs you have dropped.
Could you ask everybody
Start the
to
music. Play the cut.
listen, and subscribe? if you could do that?
Like, comment, and subscribe
Yes,
to
and then of course thank
To-
all the
to-
wonderful
to what?
The
So
league
like
community
and
to the
like
league
and
community.
yeah, subscribe to us on
Subscribe
iTunes.
To us on iTunes.
Leave us a review.
Leave us a review. Hopefully 5 stars, or don't bother.
Yeah.
That's how that works, right?
Wow.
Oh,
Play the music, Sean.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. It's been great. It's been fun. And we'll see y'all next time for the next episode of the League Community Podcast.